My name is Maya. I am 29. Last Tuesday, I sat in a lawyer's office and watched my entire family celebrate getting millions from my grandfather's will while I held a yellowed envelope with nothing inside but a phone number. My sister, Kendra, laughed so hard she had to grip my mother's arm. My uncle Marcus raised his coffee like a toast. The attorney just sat there, hands folded, watching me the way you would watch someone open a door they can never close again. Everyone in that room had already spent their inheritance in their heads before the ink dried. And me? I was the punchline, the girl who pours coffee and manages a diner for a living. They had written me off years ago. Grandpa Arthur's envelope was to them the final proof. But here is what none of them knew. Not Kendra, not my uncle with his self-appointed title and his luxury SUV. They did not know what happens when the punchline picks up the phone and dials. Before I tell you the rest, if you enjoy this kind of story, take a moment to hit like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely mean it. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you are listening from. Now, let me take you back to last Monday morning. The air in the funeral home was thick with the smell of cheap lilies and expensive perfume. I was exhausted. For 2 years, I had worked 60-hour weeks at the diner while acting as Grandpa Arthur's sole caretaker. Kendra and Marcus arrived looking like they had stepped out of a magazine editorial about mourning. They did not come to say goodbye. They came to audit the crowd. Kendra stood near the floral arrangements, leaning close to our cousin. Her whisper carried perfectly across the quiet room. She said I only changed his diapers, hoping for a payout. My jaw tightened, my teeth grinding together so hard my temples ached. 10 minutes later, Marcus cornered me by the catering table. He adjusted his silk tie and looked down his nose at me. He told me I needed to vacate my trust-owned apartment by Friday. He said the real adults needed to liquidate the assets. I gripped the edge of the table. I deal with entitled, screaming customers every single day. I know a bully when I see one. He thought I was just a waitress. He did not realize I was about to become his landlord. Back in the lawyer's parking lot after the will reading, the echo of Kendra's laughter still rang in my ears. The asphalt radiated afternoon heat. I sat in the driver's seat of my beat-up sedan, my hands steady. I stared at the 10 digits scrawled in Arthur's shaky handwriting. I dialed. The line rang twice. A man answered. His voice was gravelly, blunt, and entirely professional. He introduced himself as Elias, the legal trustee for Arthur's private estate. There was no legal jargon, no waiting on hold. Elias laid out the reality in 3 sentences. Arthur had established a $50 million irrevocable trust, completely separate from the public will. It included full, undisputed ownership of the family's entire real estate empire. And it was left entirely to the one person who actually showed up when his health failed, me. My breath caught in my throat. Marcus had just inherited $2 million and thought he was a king. He had no idea he was standing in my castle. Word travels fast when money is involved. By Thursday, rumors of a hidden trust had leaked into the family group chats. Kendra panicked. Her strategy shifted from mockery to manipulation. That evening, a sharp knock rattled my front door. Kendra stood on my porch, her makeup perfectly smudged to simulate fresh tears. She threw her arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. She blamed her cruelty on grief. She said losing Grandpa broke her, and she begged me to let her stay the night at Arthur's main estate for closure. I offered her a warm smile. I patted her back and handed her the guest key. I played the forgiving, naive, younger sister perfectly. But I am not stupid. That night, I sat on my couch in the dark, my phone screen illuminating my face. The day Arthur died, I had tucked a tiny wireless camera on the top shelf of his study, right behind his favorite books. I watched the live feed. At 2 a.m, the heavy oak door of the study creaked open. Kendra crept inside, a flashlight clenched in her teeth. She did not magically produce a fake document out of thin air. She went straight to Arthur's desk drawer and pulled out his actual medical log, the real notebook where he had tracked his blood pressure and minor stroke symptoms years ago. I watched her tear out the old, dated pages. She picked up Arthur's heavy fountain pen. Meticulously, she began writing new forged entries, backdating them to make his past manageable illness look like recent, severe dementia. She was building a case to prove he was out of his mind when he signed the trust. I did not call the police. I did not drive over there and scream. I smiled in the quiet of my living room, watching my sister carefully dig her own grave. The next evening, Marcus and Kendra decided to celebrate their presumed victory. They hosted a lavish, catered dinner party for their wealthy friends at the main estate. Marcus, ever the paranoid control freak, had already changed the front gate codes and hired private security. But Marcus forgot one thing. I manage a diner. I know the local hospitality industry inside and out. I drove around to the service entrance. 2 catering vans were parked near the kitchen doors. I recognized the head chef immediately. We shared the same produce vendor. I borrowed a spare black catering blazer and walked right through the kitchen, a silver tray in my hands. I earned my access through the very job they mocked. The dining room was a sea of crystal glasses and fake laughter. Marcus held court at the head of the table. The head caterer approached him, holding a payment terminal, asking for the final $15,000 balance. Marcus aggressively swiped his sleek black corporate card. The machine beeped, declined. Marcus scowled, muttering about bank errors. He pulled out a second card, declined. His face flushed red. He raised his voice, threatening the caterer. That was my cue. I stepped out from the shadowy hallway. The clinking of silverware stopped. Every head turned. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. I walked straight up to Marcus and handed him a legally notarized notice to quit. I told him Elias had frozen the corporate accounts at 9 a.m. for an embezzlement audit. I informed him that he could not pay for his party, and as of the paper in his hand, he was trespassing on my property. Kendra leaped out of her chair, her face contorted in rage. She opened her mouth to scream, but I simply tapped my phone screen. The Bluetooth speakers in the dining room hijacked the ambient music. Suddenly, Kendra's own voice echoed off the high ceilings. It was a saved voicemail from 6 months ago. Her voice whined through the speakers, complaining that Arthur was taking too long to die and ruining her vacation plans. The silence in the room was absolute. The wealthy guests exchanged horrified glances. One by one, they set down their napkins, pushed back their chairs, and walked out the front door. Kendra's social reputation evaporated in less than 60 seconds. They were financially and socially starved out on the spot. Enraged and humiliated, they took the ultimate bait. 2 weeks later, Marcus and Kendra officially filed a legal motion to contest the trust. They submitted the forged medical log as their primary evidence, signing sworn affidavits under penalty of perjury. They thought they had checkmated the diner waitress. We met at the mediation table in a sterile downtown conference room. Elias sat beside me, his face an unreadable mask. Kendra sat across from us, practically vibrating with smug confidence. She slid the leather-bound log across the polished wood, claiming she miraculously found it while grieving. I slid my tablet across the table to meet it. I pressed play. The crisp, high-definition night vision video filled the screen. Kendra's face went completely white as she watched herself rip out pages and forge the entries. She scrambled backward, her chair screeching against the floor. She shrieked that the video was fake, her hands shaking wildly. Elias leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. He explained the law with terrifying calm. By contesting the will using a felony forgery, Arthur's ironclad no contest clause was instantly triggered. Kendra and Marcus had just forfeited their $2 million inheritances. Every single penny. Furthermore, as an officer of the court, Elias was legally bound to hand the perjury evidence over to the district attorney. The trap had snapped shut. I did not wait around for the slow, grinding wheels of the justice system to crush them. I cut off all contact that very afternoon. Marcus vanished into a nightmare of IRS audits regarding his corporate theft, his luxury vehicles repossessed one by one. Kendra faced federal fraud indictments. Her corporate firm fired her the moment the scandal hit the local news. Last I heard, she was living in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, awaiting trial. I made sure there were no loose ends. I drove to the estate and gently loaded Arthur's elderly golden retriever into the back of my car. He sleeps at the foot of my bed now. Elias met me on the front porch of the estate one last time. He handed over the physical master keys and the finalized trust ledgers. He offered a rare, genuine smile. He told me he had promised Arthur he would keep the wolves at bay until I was ready to lead the pack. He said his job was done, and with that, he formally retired, walking down the driveway toward his own peace. The next morning, I visited the diner. I did not put on an apron. I handed my keys to my assistant manager, effectively promoting her on the spot. I walked out into the bright morning sunlight, completely free. If you are listening to this, I want you to understand something crucial about toxic entitlement. Narcissists always attack the caretakers. They do it because genuine love shines a blinding spotlight on their own greed. Kendra and Marcus did not hate me because I poured coffee. They hated me because I possessed a loyalty they could not buy. Surviving a family like mine taught me 3 rules that saved my life. Rule number 1, silence is an invitation to a bully. For years, I kept the peace. I swallowed their insults to avoid making a scene. But keeping the peace only teaches abusers how to wipe their feet on you. You have to speak up, even if your voice shakes. Rule number 2, real power does not need to shout. Arthur stayed quiet for years. He watched, he tested, and he planned before making his final devastating move. You do not need to scream your intentions to the world. Move in silence and let your results make the noise. Rule number 3, never interrupt your enemy when they are destroying themselves. Toxic people are arrogant. They believe they are the smartest people in the room. If you give them enough rope, they will always overplay their hand. All you have to do is set the boundary and let them cross it on camera. Blood does not make you family. Loyalty does. You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, even if you share a last name. Trust is earned, it is never owed. Have you ever had to let a toxic family member dig their own grave? Have you ever had to walk away to save yourself? Tell me your story in the comments below. Read through them. You will quickly realize you are not alone in this fight. If this story helped you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Stay strong, protect your peace, and never let anyone tell you what you are worth.